is the 75th year for India's independence. Now, you've often seen us at Overdrive celebrate this proud moment in style, and today is no different. We are at a world-class automotive testing facility right here in India, and we are going to be celebrating our sense of freedom and nationality with some fantastic cars at the National Automotive Test Tracks, or NATRAX in short. Situated at the heart of India, NATRAX is the ultimate test bed for any automobile brand or enthusiasts who want to put their vehicles through the ultimate tests. NATRAX is home to a plethora of test facilities ranging from endurance tracks and watercourses to simulation labs and a high-speed bowl. Now, NATRAX has been around for a while, but this high-speed circuit that you see behind me, that was inaugurated recently, and that has the attention of Overdrive and many other performance enthusiasts out there. Most luxury cars are restricted to 250 kilometers an hour. That feels like a walk in the park on this track. You want to up the stakes to 300 kilometers an hour? No problem at all. In fact, the track will say, yes, absolutely, go ahead, do it if you have the skills, because that bank curve that you see has a speed limit of between 350 to 375 and also a 250 kmph neutral speed. What that means is, if you were to let go of the steering at that speed, it will still make the curve because that's the way it is banked. You want to up the stakes even further, you have a vehicle that is even quicker than that or faster than that, well, you have the long straights for it. And motorcycles shouldn't be a problem either. Hayabusa? Why Hayabusa? Go with the H2. In fact, why H2? Go with the H2R if you have the skills and the guts to do it. Bottom line is, on planet Earth, there are very few places that can actually allow you to legally reach these kind of speeds. And it's a matter of pride that one of those places is right here in India. 11.3-kilometer long track comprises of long straights and heavily cambered curves to create a very NASCAR-like high-speed bowl required to achieve these speeds. And this crown jewel is one of the 14 test tracks at NATRAX.
When we design a proving ground, one important aspect to be considered, or which has been considered, is the safety, right? And as you see, this is a 4-lane high-speed track capable of neutral speed up to 250 kilometers per hour on the curves, and then you can take up to 375 also with control on steering and all that. So when we really go up to that speed, obviously we have to be concerned about safety or any eventuality, right? Now, for example, now let's talk about the vehicle going out of control. So then you must have seen that we have crash barriers on both sides, which can absorb the energy and can save to some extent. That's point number one. And point number two, at such high speed, we cannot afford to have any intrusion of any animals and all that. So you must have seen that there are animal fencing on both sides so that it is free from any animal intrusion and all that. So these are the two prime things which have been considered. And for example, to assist in case of any eventuality, because of course, as far as safety is concerned, it involves both active safety and passive safety, right? Active safety is that which helps in avoiding accidents, and passive safety is that which once the accident happens, how do we minimize the injury, right? Now, as far as passive safety is concerned, as I mentioned, like we have let's say a crash barrier, and as far as active safety is concerned, as I said, we have animal fencing, right? So in addition to that, maybe if somebody wants to drive in the night, we have reflectors, and also I must also make a mention that we have a modern proving ground management system, in the sense that there are cameras placed at every 300 meters, with which we can monitor the traffic, right, sitting in the track access control. And if we feel, for example, now, this is a facility where, multiple cars can be used. So in such case, if some driver, let's say, goes out of control, if he overspeeds or he overtakes and things like that. So from the track access control, we can communicate with the driver, well, you are, overspeeding or violating the traffic and all that. So this is something which also has been considered.
In fact, we have some interesting stories lined up on this track, so do check those out. During our time filming them, we also had a chance to take the Commissioner of Indore and his family for a spin on the track. And The E63S on the superior tarmac and the physics of this HST makes a 300 km/h run feel like a walk in the park.
And we are at 300. Mr. Commissioner, you're sitting next to me and I'm doing 300 kilometers an hour. I certainly can't do this speed anywhere else. If I do, you will certainly jail me for it.
Complementing the high-speed track is the dynamic platform, which features a steering pad that has a 300-meter radius and a 1.5-kilometer long stretch of tarmac as well.
So we are at the dynamic skid pad where, of course, you can have a bit of fun if you want to. Sorry, my cameraman hates me right now, but this is what the dynamic skid pad is for. And you can also use this long straight to have a bit of straight line fun. And especially with a car like this, which has such a brilliant launch control system, I think it's even more fun. It's very simple. Hold down the brake. We'll also do the drag race mode here. This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal, and it records all of this. It tells you how good you have been. So let's look at the report card. 0 to 50, 10-meter distance, 1.48 seconds. 0 to 100, 3.72. Wow. Acceleration, top speed, corner speed, it might mean the world to you and I, but velocity is not the only parameter that matters. Vehicles have to go through a lot more, like potholes and ditches, and that is why the NATRAX has these fatigue and endurance test tracks, which essentially up the challenge and make the suspension and chassis go through a lot more rigoring tests than what our real world might actually throw at it. Like, for example, I'm driving through these little potholes at the moment, and then moving on to these cobblestone pathways, and compared to similar test beds that you have in some of the other test facilities, these cobblestone pathways are not only about varying heights for the cobblestones, but also, varying events, as they call it. Like, there is undulation, there is elevation change within these cobbled pathways. There are also potholes that they've suddenly thrown here and there to sort of replicate the kind of conditions that you might encounter when you're driving on some really, really bad patches of road. Maybe, like what you might encounter on your way to Ladakh, or even these kind of roads where you have these zigzag patterned potholes, which again test how the chassis and the suspension copes up with such sudden changes. The sharp bumps that I keep talking about, this sort of replicates that. And then you also have the twist road. Now, interestingly, the twist road, unlike most other test beds of similar kind in different countries, this one has again a varying degree of height, anywhere from 300 mm to 600 mm. In fact, the experts at NATRAX tell me that the last time a passenger vehicle used the 600 mm height on this particular kind of twisting test bed was the Hummer, that long back. So you see that, not every vehicle might require this level of testing, but all this facility is right here. So if someone wants to use it, someone needs to use it for their testing, they can.
In fact, there are 28 different modules like herringbone, splash road, Belgian paved road, just to name a few, to test and fine-tune everything from entry hatchbacks to big commercial vehicles.
So this is a fatigue track. What that essentially means that there are different levels of severity. So by the end of all the tests, it actually ages the car. I think I have already put in a few years on this particular Ford Endeavour, and even my back and neck feel like they're already creaking. Thankfully, I still have my hair.
Complementing this test bed are tracks with different angles of incline that help test the gradability of passenger and commercial vehicles. Manufacturers run a battery of tests on multiple test tracks like these, record the data, and then feed it to various simulators that will replicate these events on the powertrain, suspension, steering, chassis, etc. to simulate thousands of kilometers of testing to further accelerate the fatigue on the components. Therefore, it is not just the track, but also the dynamics and the powertrain labs that play an important role, where the big simulators and machines take over.
Thankfully, testing vehicles at the Dynamics Lab does not require a driver at all. There are state-of-the-art automated testing equipment out here. Something like the single axle machinery that you see behind me, which is used for the kinematics and compliance test. So it will help fine-tune the chassis elements. On a related note, you also have a 4x4 dynamometer. You also have an automated steering system test, which will help test the durability, fine-tune the steering torque, the steering feel. So these are all state-of-the-art machinery. For example, this particular machine behind me can take vehicle loads up to 4 tons with an axle load of 2.2 tons.
This machine is called as SPMM machine, which is suspension parameter measuring machine. So all parameters of vehicle suspension, we can measure it here. See, we will drive the vehicle on tracks, but where we can do objective and subjective measurement. But before that, if we have some objective parameters of vehicle, then we can evaluate the vehicle on track very in precise manner. So suppose what are the parameters that we can evaluate it here. So on this machine, all the vehicle dynamics parameters like bounce, roll, pitch, caster, camber, lateral acceleration, radial rate, tire radial rate, every parameter we can evaluate it here. So all that, if I will have all these parameters with me in practical, then with that analysis, then I will go, if I go on the track, then my this testing would be more successful than without these parameters. So we have this machine here, and this is a lone machine in India, which is having mechanical actuators. So no one else is having in India this machine. We have one steering test rig. So before testing vehicle over here, we will have a steering sample of that vehicle, and we will test it there. So all steering parameters I will get it there, which input I can give it to this machine for dynamic simulation. So these are all added. Suppose one damper test rig is there. So the vehicle will have dampers, shock absorbers. But the shock absorber value I don't know. Only theoretical value I know. So that shock absorber value I will evaluate on the shock absorber test rig, and the force versus velocity curve I will have. That I will apply it here. So that second stage will this machine do. And third stage we will go on track. So all the vehicle design to final prototype and means build the vehicle build, we will have a complete vehicle simulation here.
Of course, NATRAX isn't a racetrack, but it has a handling track that is fit to be one if you want to indulge in some competitive activity. Of course, all of that may not be allowed, but this track is about 3.8 kilometers. So that's almost as much as the track in Chennai, the MMRT. And it certainly got better tarmac, because this is of course for gauging the handling dynamics of a car, making sure that you can fine-tune everything that you need with respect to handling. There is also a similar handling or a dynamics track for two-wheelers or three-wheelers, slightly narrower than this, but Again, something that can be used to fine-tune the handling dynamics for most commuter two-wheelers is what I think. I'm not sure if you would want to bring high-speed or high-performance two-wheelers to this particular track to test it out, but you could do it on this track where I'm driving right now. And of course, like all other facilities at NATRAX, this is not only about performance cars or sports cars. You can also bring the regular cars over here because a lot of other manufacturers already are.
That said, unlike racetracks which are designed for speed, these handling circuits are narrow and designed to challenge the dynamics of the vehicle with varying gradients, tight corners, and some off-camber corners as well. While the one you see here is for four-wheelers, there's one for two-wheelers as well. Similarly, there are comfort tracks for fine-tuning vehicle NVH on various types of asphalt and concrete surfaces. There are also a wet skid pad and a multi-surface braking track to test and ensure that the car's stability, traction control and braking systems are working as intended. NATRAX also has some challenging off-road tracks which are extensively used for testing of SUVs, 4x4 drivetrains and even off-road focused tires and components. Spread across 3.5 kilometers, these include surfaces like gravel, sand and ruts. Whereas a rocky forest road with elevated boulders and small hillocks has been maintained for the more hardcore off-road vehicles like the Thar. But then there is the all-important question: if manufacturers like Mahindra already have their own test tracks, why would they come to NATRAX?
There are manufacturers who have their own test track facilities, but I must make a mention that all manufacturers do not have their own test tracks, point number one. Point number two, even if they have, they don't have the magnitude and the variety and the quality with which the construction has been made. You know, there's a sea difference between possibly what they have and what we have out here. And that is why, you know, we proudly say, although everybody would like to have the proving ground of this magnitude and variety, but they cannot afford to have. So that is why, you know, government thought that they must create a facility in the country so that, you know, the industry can make use of it, and so that, you know, they are able to produce safe, comfortable and let's say durable vehicles in future. Well, I must highlight the contribution of the government. You know, like this project was conceived under the automotive mission plan launched by Government of India, and then this is part of the NATRAX project to create state-of-the-art R&D and testing infrastructure in the country in support of the growing Indian automotive industry. So, keeping that in mind, obviously, of course, we had also involved a global consultant. You know, so that time the target was to make the best proving ground in the world. So, you know, that was the target, and that is why, you know, we are now proud to say that this is the Asia's longest high-speed track, and of course spread over 3,000 acres of land given by Government of Madhya Pradesh, for which we are very grateful to them. And this has become the Asia's largest proving ground. And I must also say, with all this infrastructure, we have the potential to be rated as in the top 3 in the world. In fact, if you see the automotive mission plan launched by this government in 2016, that India to attain the top 3 spots in the world. And so in that connection, I would say that, you know, as far as this proving ground is concerned, this has got a very potential to be rated as in the top 3 in the world.
Now, the all-important question: is NATRAX open to all?
Basically, this center has been developed by keeping the view in the mind that the entire testing has to be done by the OEMs, it's original equipment manufacturers, so that all players who are developing their vehicle at the initial phase, they will get they not required to go to abroad or at a very different places. So this center will provide them as a one-point solution. And now thinking about the private players or the sports car club, that can be thought of, but the main aim will be to serve the Indian automobile industry. And if there could be an ideal period or the facility is getting not fully utilized, then management is positively thinking to give some scope for this supercar club. But definitely it will be under different safety protocols and a different speed limit, which will give the feel to this owner or the practitioners, supercar clubs, but under you say supercar with the super surveillance. So that can be entertained in the future. Management is positively thinking about that.
And we've often seen a lot of these camouflage test mules plying the roads of India. Of course, most of these cars are intended for the Indian market, but there are a few vehicles that come to India as a part of their global testing procedure because of the additional challenges like the Indian roads, the wearing weather, the dusty conditions, etc. Similarly, some vehicles that are produced in India have to go elsewhere for maybe quicker and cleaner roads, better facilities, etc. But now, with the NATRAX, which is a part of the NATRIP and the Automotive Mission Plan launched by the Government of India, vehicle manufacturers may not have to go elsewhere for better facilities, for world-class facilities to do their testing and getting their validations and certifications. Now that is certainly a matter of pride for all Indians out there. But at the same time, it also shows how India is leveling up to the global scale. And this means nothing but great news for auto enthusiasts like you and I.